Hello, it's the 9th of February, and I just want to take a little trip around the world because there's more and more every day that you can't keep up with the headlines. And today, there's several that I think is worth watching. This first one here, and we'll probably go back and forth, between areas. But the first one here, the video appearing to show the Jordanian pilot's burning death absolutely backfired against ISIS. And we know that they've been talking about it a lot on the news and what King Abdullah is doing. So, and his vow to eradicate ISIS, and how President Obama has downplayed everything and even comparing them to Christianity. But this one thing this general said, and there shows them protesting and holding up pictures of him. Jordan is heartbroken. The whole country is, and my heart goes out to them. My prayers go out to Jordan and King Abdullah in their fight against this. We know that King Abdullah did an interview last year. I did a post on my blog on that about all of the. He says this is a Muslim problem. He doesn't understand the term moderate Muslim because he's a Muslim and he doesn't know what these people are. I caution about that type of sentiment, but at least King Abdullah of Jordan is denouncing them along with Egypt and a couple of others. So let's take a look. The ISIS video that showed the Jordanian pilot burned alive is absolutely backfiring on the terror group, and that came from Marine Corps General John Allen. He said it will be one of these moments that created a unity of purpose and a unity of effort among the nations of the world. That statement alone is cause for us to take a step backwards and look at this. In essence, really, there has been World War III declared, and it's against this ideology that ISIS is portraying. So let's take a little bit of a look at some of this. One thing I want to talk about is a cleric who Memory TV did a video of just recently, and I might play a little bit of that video, but the transcript of the video, while I watched this video, it kind of sent chills down my spine. He's saying that ISIS, these people have invented many bad practices, which they attribute to the Prophet Muhammad, and that was the public slaughtering of people. They slaughtered their rivals, including several leaders and mujahideen in Syria. Um, People started to believe that slaughtering people in the name of the Prophet was the normal, and they cited the hadith, "O people of Quraysh, I have brought slaughter upon you." The Prophet said this when the people mocked him. What they forget to mention is how the Prophet treated the people of Quraysh. Um, in other words, he said they told parts of them that they could go free. They ignore that and cited that the Prophet, when he was mocked and turned the slaughtering into a habitual practice, they have painted Islam, the jihadi movement, and the mujahideen in red. They have made people think that jihad can be waged only by killing and slaughter. Then they came up with the practice of immolation. Now, I think this is important because I have asked several times, why did they burn him? Why did they burn him alive? There has to be some symbolism in that. And there is. Listen to this, what he said. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Only the Lord of fire torments with fire." Now, that alone should strike a chord among Christians because Jesus talks over and over and over about how you can be thrown into the fire, how Satan is the Lord of fire. So there's symbolism here with ISIS. I'm not saying that all Muslims are that way, but there's symbolism here. We have said over and over that ISIS is demonic, that this is not normal. It's a spiritual world, and that's exactly what this cleric pointed out. And I thought that sent chills down my spine, especially with verses in Revelation that go there also. Only the Lord of fire torments with fire. Okay, I haven't said a whole lot about Russia. I've been watching the Ukraine back and forth and the United States putting sanctions on Russia and the NATO coming together to defend Ukraine. But here's an article that caught my eye this morning. Russia's Putin says Kiev on a dead-end track. Well, here's another statement that should send warning bells off. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Kiev must stop its military operation in East Ukraine and cease exerting economic pressure on rebel-held regions, warning that it was a dead-end track fraught with catastrophe. That's that's a statement that we should all take into heart because, as you know, there's a lot of scholars that believe Russia is in the Bible in prophecy, and it's beginning to look more and more like they're just poking at Russia, uh, which is the bear, actually. They're poking at the bear to try to get a reaction from it, and it's going to be a reaction that they actually don't want. Okay, on the same lines, along the same lines with Russia, in the Ukraine, there was a powerful explosion that rocked a chemical plant and set it on fire Monday outside the separatist stronghold of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. Rebels said the plant was hit by government shelling. Now I want to bring in a small portion of a video that I don't know if it's true or not, but it goes along with this and it sends more chills down your spine. Okay, there's a video of a spectacular explosion leaves a mushroom cloud in eastern Ukraine. Um, the residents of the city of Donetsk have witnessed an explosion of a tremendous magnitude that has come to form a mushroom cloud. They assume that it's an explosion at a factory or it could have been a ballistic missile. They're not really sure what it was yet. Like I said, this should send chills down everyone's spine. What are they doing over there? It occurred west of Donetsk around 2250, which is 10 minutes to um, 11, I think, if I know my military time right. Or yes, and caused a shock wave that swept the city. They felt a shock, and the detonation destroyed windows. It shook houses, destroyed windows. Let's scroll on down to the video. It's just a 20-second video, and you can see it. It was near a chemical factory. It was so strong that it could be heard and seen 10 kilometers away. And here's the short video. Look at that. You know, what are they doing over there? I really don't know. It sends chills down your spine. We need to watch that and watch it very close. This is something that we should also watch very closely. Everybody, I'm sure by now, knows about the National Prayer Breakfast, where President Obama said that we were on our high horse, and let's not forget how many deaths were caused by Christians in the Crusades, and also slavery and the Spanish Inquisition. But now the left is trying to ward off all of the flack that he's been getting by saying, what did he really mean? And as this article points out, it cut deep throughout America's church community, where many believe the U.S. is involved in a border religious war that pits the West Christian underpinnings against the East Islamic tenets. And that is the truth. This is a holy war of biblical proportions, but the way he portrayed it was he's still sympathetic towards Islam, and he's not defending Christianity or Americans, which I find odd as he professes to be a Christian, but it pretty much shows where his loyalties lie. Especially after this last videos where ISIS burned the Jordanian pilot alive and they beheaded a Christian Japanese journalist and another Japanese man also. It's more than just a vicious death cult, as Obama says, but they're again trying to portray that, oh, that's not what he really meant. What he really meant was that it's what he really meant, and like I said, it shows where his loyalties lie. As sustained news about the terrorist organization continues to sweep through the news cycle, there's been an increased pressure from leaders stateside on the Obama administration to frame the conflict as a religious war against radical Islam, which the president thus far has resisted. So it's going to go back and forth in the media for a while, but just know that his comments or lack of comments shows clearly where his loyalties lie. Now here's another article that caught my eye. If the Muslims are realizing that Obama's silence is bad, then, you know, we need to wake up in America. This is a Saudi columnist, and Saudi Arabia, you know the history there with the United States, how much they support. In fact, it's even been said that the Saudi government funded Obama's college. But I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Here's what he said. In his November 27, 2014 column in the Saudi Daily, He harshly criticized those who hesitate to unequivocally condemn Muslim terrorism and find excuses for it, such as that it is a response to Western Israeli aggression or stems from frustrations born of poverty and unemployment. He wrote that such justification indirectly supports this terrorism and pushes young people towards participating in terrorism and jihad. Thus, he says those who use the discourse of half-hearted support for terrorism are no less dangerous than the terrorist organizations themselves. Hello, some media over here in the United States has been pointing out for months that President Obama's excuses, his silence is just justification for this. And like I said, when they start realizing it, then America needs to wake up. Um, it goes on to say, have you ever heard of the butt gang? Simply put, it is a gang of people that has become enamored of the word butt, and its affair with this word is a protracted love story. This gang contradicts itself. It supports, but it doesn't support. It opposes, but it doesn't oppose. It condemns, but it doesn't condemn. This gang has no color, no flavor, no smell, because while it states that it doesn't support terrorist operations, it invents despicable excuses for them, justifying them in people's minds, primarily amongst the simple folk. In fact, there are those in the gang who do support them, the terror operations, secretly and shamefully. Hello. Um, we have been saying this over and over and over again. Look at Africa and Nigeria. At first, the West, as most specifically, President Obama wanted Goodluck Jonathan and his government to negotiate with Boko Haram because they were just poor, misunderstood terrorists who weren't really terrorists. They just needed a voice in the government. And it goes on and on. Look at Syria. That we've armed the rebels because they're just trying to get rid of an awful dictator, Assad. And then in Libya, again, when we helped them to kill Gaddafi, they were just misunderstood and needed a voice in the government. So I can't stress this enough. It's time for the people of America to wake up and realize what's going on. And he goes on to say the butt gang first surfaced with the emergence of the Al Qaeda organization. And remember, we created our Al Qaeda. I've done multiple posts on that. Hillary Clinton admitted that we created Al Qaeda with the Mujahideen. We armed them and created them to defeat Russia in Afghanistan. Anyway, and primarily after the events of September 11th, when it began condemning terrorism while simultaneously justifying it by calling it an understandable response to the injustices done to the Muslims from within and without. I do not know how they can justify terrorism as a reaction to the injustice done to Muslims in the Muslim countries, while at the same time arguing that Western democracy and freedom are apostasy and criminal. For if the absence of freedom in the Muslim countries justifies terrorism, then how to explain the terrorism that takes place in a number of European countries where life could not be more democratic? I agree wholeheartedly with this journalist, and I hope that he doesn't receive um, a lot of flack from the Saudi government. We know that there's at least one blogger over there right now awaiting his slow death sentence with 1,000 lashes, but they still haven't stopped that. Prince Charles is over in Jordan, and he's to visit Saudi Arabia, and activists all over have asked Prince Charles to talk to the Saudi government to see if they could get his sentence either lowered or done away with. That's about all the time I'm going to spend on this article, but you get the point. This back and forth with, oh, they're just misunderstood. Oh, it's terrorism. It's not terrorism. It's time for America to wake up and realize what's happening. Speaking of Boko Haram in Nigeria, they have postponed the elections until sometime in March, which is a good idea because now they have a multinational force with Chad and Cameroon to combat the um, carnage that Boko Haram is spreading. Over 1 million people have been displaced, 1.5 million to be exact. Thousands of Christians have been slaughtered, and it goes on and on. There's so much mudslinging. One says Buhari is behind the Boko Haram, and Buhari's camp says that Goodluck Jonathan is behind the Boko Haram, and they are surfacing every day with new videos, and they're saying that, you can't get us with this 7,000 multinational force. We're coming after you, and we will have you. So, I mean, this is just, Nigeria is on fire, and what lies ahead for the Christians of Nigeria, just, well, pray for Nigeria. Nigerian opposition presidential candidate Buhari called for calm in the country and cautioned against any violence. Now, remember the last time they went an election and Goodluck Jonathan won? It's been said that he unleashed the dogs of war, and he did, where they killed at least 800 people in one village area because he didn't win the election. So they're watching this very closely. And here we go. Foreign powers are closely following events in Africa's biggest economy and have voiced concerns that there could be a repetition of violence that followed the 2011 elections when 800 people died and that a delay would stoke unrest in opposition strongholds. Much has been said about the military in Nigeria and why they haven't been able to contain Boko Haram. It's been said that Boko Haram, uh, they are growing their organization, by the way. They're tied with ISIS, Al Qaeda, Al Shabaab. That's a whole superhighway of terror that goes through there. And they're gaining strength, they're gaining military strength, they're getting some of their, and it's been proven, they are getting some of their military intelligence from corruption inside the military. So Nigeria has a big problem. They are finally starting to combat it. So Nigeria, we need to pray a lot for Nigeria so that they can find the right solution and move towards peace, and that Boko Haram will be pushed back. This evil is just, again, it's satanic and demonic. Here's another article that sends chills down my spine and should everybody. A U.S. shipload of weapons and ammunition arrives in Lebanon. In Lebanon, mind you, where Hezbollah is in control. They've been attacking Israel from uh, the Golan, and now we're shipping them weapons. It says that $25 million worth of weapons and ammunition have arrived in Beirut, the latest American assistance to the Lebanese army as it fights Islamic extremism along the border with Syria. I don't understand this. I don't understand it at all. Remember now, Lebanon, Hezbollah is in control. They have been for years, and they're beginning to invade or attack Israel over the Golan and the Syrian border. I don't understand this. I never will. It says Islamic extremists have launched several attacks on Lebanese troops over the past months in areas near the Syrian border, killing and wounding scores of troops. The most serious attack occurred in August. I still don't understand this. The UN, if at the very least, instead of a peacekeeping force, needs to be monitoring this. Somebody needs to be responsible for these weapons shipments. Here we go again, just like in Syria when we shipped all of those weapons to the rebels over there. Nobody was monitoring it. ISIS gained control of most of the weapons and the aid. This is crazy. It's just crazy, and we're aiding it. I don't understand. I don't understand. They say that Lebanon has become the fifth largest recipient of U.S. foreign military assistance. Now remember, Lebanon, Hezbollah is in control of Lebanon, and I don't really understand it. It says that the Lebanese military is generally seen as a unifying force in Lebanon and draws its ranks from all the country's sects, Sunni and Shiite Muslim, Christian and Druze, but the armed forces have struggled to contain the escalating violence in the country. Okay, Hezbollah has grown into a political organization. They hold seats in the parliament. They have grown their military. 29 years ago today, Hezbollah published its charter, launching nearly 3 decades of violence and organized terror across the globe. The charter firmly condemns peace negotiations with Israel, declaring that Hezbollah's struggle will end only when this entity is obliterated. Today, Hezbollah's ideology hasn't changed, and its terrorism has only become more dangerous as the organization expands its weapons arsenal, including 100,000 rockets and missiles pointed at Israel. Its leaders to continue to defend the Charter's key tenets. We take a look at the three leaders perpetuating the hatred and the violence of Hezbollah's Charter today. Nasrallah, he is the Secretary General. He's the one we see most often with his fists in the air saying death to Israel, death to America. And they do have ties to Iran. They follow the Ayatollah Khomeini there. They're heavily involved in the Shiite prophecy. So, this is something to watch, and it's something to be very careful of. Like I said, at the very least, with these weapons going into Lebanon, we need to have observers there to show that it does not get in their hands, because they have sworn that they will take out Israel, and they will do it. They will. This is not something to sneeze at. One more thing about Russia, and then we'll end it for today. The sanctions that the West has placed on Russia, most specifically the United States, have cost the EU, the European Union, 21 billion euros. Uh, Most especially in Spain, I guess. The EU has suffered 21 billion euros in lost exports as a result of sanctions against Russia over Ukraine. Spain's foreign minister said Monday, sanctions have had a heavy cost for us all. The EU has so far lost 21 billion euros. In Spain, they have been badly hit in terms of agriculture and tourism. Um, He's given the first figure of its kind for the EU. The European Union has become increasingly divided over the tough economic sanctions that it has progressively imposed on Russia since July. They're fearing for their trade ties with Moscow. Now, remember, Moscow and Russia, they control the gas exports to most of Europe. So if this continues and they cut those gas supplies off to Europe, this is a kind of a case, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's my opinion, where they're cutting their nose off to spite their face. Again, poking at the bear. This is something, again, to keep an eye on and pray for knowledge, wisdom, and guidance.